Welcome to Telling the Bees, where I'm deciding to go long. I think I've been looking for a place to go a little bit more long form, and obviously, we don't know what's going to happen to TikTok in 60 days or 55 days, whatever. The signs are a little bit more positive than they had been in the past, but I think it's smart to have somewhere else to do a little bit more long form analysis. I think these first couple of weeks, I'm going to be talking about Love is Blind and White Lotus, along with some other cultural stuff that's going on. I'm very interested in what's going on with the Oscars, and I think I will also do a weekly book recommendation. But obviously, watch this space. This is very new, and I'm sort of like flying by the seat of my pants. But Love is Blind, season 8. This season is not good. I'm very surprised by what's going on here. For the subtitle, I'm calling it a manic pixie nightmare epidemic because it seems like a lot of people are just like pretending to be who they want, or a lot of people are pretending to be what other people want them to be versus actually being themselves. And it's very, very off-putting and also very obvious. I'm surprised that more people, I think if you're behind the pods, you're also not getting that full extent of their body language and sort of what they look like and what they're giving in their energy. I think me coming into this, just, we've been watching this for 8 seasons. We're watching them be kind of inauthentic, kind of weird. And I think some people are obviously more genuine than others, but I think some people are so off-putting this season that I'm just like surprised that they're being platformed. So let's just jump right into it. I think the way that I've structured this is I have the first 2 episodes with like moment by moment notes, and then the rest of the episodes are just sort of kind of amorphous where I go by couple. I think that there was a lot going on and nothing going on at the exact same time. I was very surprised by the fact that there were 6 pod episodes. I don't think we've ever had that, but we definitely haven't had that before. I know that for a fact. And we start off with Dave, the medical device salesman who's obsessed with Botox and telling women if they're hot or not. I find it ironic that he's a little bit obsessed with his looks when he's not like the most fit or the most good looking. I think the season is very Minnesota. I'm surprised. I'm seeing all the memes of people saying that like all the guys look the same. And I have said before on TikTok, I'm very good at telling white people apart. And even I was like, oh my God, like all of the guys have this like build. They all have brown hair. They all are very, very much the same guy in a way that's we really haven't seen before. I know a lot of people of color, a lot of my people, a lot of my sisters are asking where the POC are, right? We have, the 3 sort of African American people who are all in a love triangle and then no one else, right? We have that older Asian woman who we never see again. I know that Minneapolis has a big Somali population. Like, where are they? I saw some people on TikTok also saying that like a Somali would never go on reality TV, which like but I don't know. Lydia's Puerto Rican, but I don't know. We are really, really, really missing out on some of the diversity. Anyway, Dave is kind of a dick. He loves negging women. It's really odd. He is very aggressive. He starts off the conversations with, "What's wrong with you? Why are you here?" And it's just very, very off-putting. I am surprised that so many women were into him, or I guess not so many women, 2 women, but the fact that he was able to just get away with this. And I think that obviously both girls have a little bit a little bit wrong with them, but we will get to them when we get to them. The next person that I talked about was Maga Meg. And obviously it might not be fair to call her Maga Meg, but I found it very interesting that she immediately led with, "Oh, I listened to this crazy thing on the Joe Rogan podcast." I will say, again, the manic pixie thing, I think that there are a lot of women on this season who are very, I don't know if this is like a Minnesota thing. They're and not only the women, I will also say, but like specifically Meg, specifically Madison, specifically Molly, they're very, very invested in this idea of themselves as being like cool and just like a chill girl. And Meg being like, "I love aliens and I'm so quirky and I'm so weird and I'm so woo woo." It was a lot, I think. I was very, very, very surprised that she sort of hit it off with Mason because he seems like very down to earth. But then I also think that there is this thing of men being attracted to that energy, right? These like intense or like quirky girls. The Manic Pixie thing, right? Elizabeth's Town, Garden State, these are movies. If you're young and you're listening to this, they are both movies about men falling in love with these insane, quirky girls who teach them how to live their lives and open them up. And it feels like Mason was very, very into that energy, right? The fact that he was into Meg and also into Madison, both women who were very about this energy, says a lot. The next thing we meet Devin, who used to play basketball. He had an ibuprofen addiction. We don't learn this in episode 1. I literally was so distracted by his hairline, and I know that that's very mean, but as a, a black man. I was like, ooh, ooh, Lord. I was surprised. I was very surprised. I think he is very handsome. I think he's cute. He has a sweet face. I was just very surprised by the hair. We meet Brittany. I think she said Brittany. He said Brittany. No one else is saying Brittany. It feels weird to keep saying Brittany, but they bond on the basketball thing. I love her energy. I think she's so beautiful. In my notes, I literally wrote beautiful women basketball. She's so pretty. I love her smile. I think she's very infectious. Obviously, we know what happens with the two of them, but I was kind of obsessed with her. And apparently she was one of the people that they brought out at the end of last season to like tease this season. I guess they wanted to like show that there was some diversity at some point, and then she didn't make it past the pods, I fear. Next up, we have Molly, Miss Molly Maloney. Lord, Molly the Bangs. I will say, I think I have a little bit of, I'm from the Northeast, right? I'm literally from New York. I have met many, many, many Amali O'Brien, Amali Maloney, Amali this, Amali that. Irish people love naming their kids Molly. It is an epidemic. As soon as she got on screen with those bangs, I said, oh Lord, here we go. And then the fact that her and Dave have that straight person bullying banter thing. I watch so much reality TV. I watch a lot of reality dating TV, and so many straight people love that banter thing, that like being mean to each other to show each other that we like each other and we're cool. And it is very irritating. It is very irritating to watch. Like, if you watch The Bachelor, if you watch Love is Blind, if you watch Love Island, you will see it over and over and over again. And I think it's an epidemic. Like, I think straight people should sit down and look at themselves in the mirror and say, why is our version of flirting terrorizing each other and like pretending that we're so funny and so witty? There is a dating influencer who I probably will talk about a lot, whose whole thing is like banter. If we don't have banter, if we don't have banter. And I'm just like, sweetie, this isn't banter. This is you guys just saying mean things to each other and like pretending that it's funny. Next up, we have Lauren. Dave negged her and she stayed, which spoke to an insecurity. And I know that this is a little bit mean, but we're doing psychological analysis, right? So like, I don't want to say that she's deeply insecure, but then she says that she's insecure. So I was proud of myself for clocking it. She is very much chasing after that affirmation that Dave is like sort of giving her and sort of not giving her. He's like carroting her. And I just learned that term, so excuse me if I'm using it wrong, but like holding the carrot over her head to make her chase after his approval and his affection, right? He says the what's wrong with you thing. She gasps. She's like, oh my God, which is another version of straight flirting, men saying inappropriate things and women gasping and giggling. It's very college. She talks about how she's insecure. She's an overthinker. She's spiraling about Dave's connection with Molly. I wrote extremely insecure again. I will say, I think that her and Dave look like brother and sister, and I don't know if this is a Minnesota thing or just like I actually am starting to develop face blindness, but they look a lot alike, and it is very, very eerie to me. And I do not say that people look alike ever because I do not have face blindness. I'm very good at telling people apart, but something about their eyes, the eye color, the nose, the cheeks, the lips, they literally look so much alike that it's distracting. Joey and Monica. Apparently, Monica is Latina. I completely missed that. I don't know when she said that. In my notes, I said I don't know anything about Monica. She quit her job to help her grandma, which is very sweet. She feels a lot of shame around not, having a full-time job, which I totally understand. When I was laid off, I was laid off, so it was a different situation, but I definitely felt that shame, that like ego death of existing in America in a very capitalistic society, place so much emphasis on our jobs, right? It is our identity. So to meet people, especially if she's dating, right? I think she's 28 or 30. If she's dating and I don't have a job, I think it is very intense because people obviously judge you on that. Joey's accent is crazy. I wrote that down. I only know a couple of people from Minneapolis. I know two people from Minneapolis that live in New York, and they do not sound like this. Obviously, it is a sort of self-selecting thing because he stayed there. But the fact that the other guys were also making fun of his accent slayed me because I was like, ooh, every time he spoke, I was very, 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 I was just like, oh my goodness. I will say, it seems like Joey has a little bit of a savior complex, which explains why he's attracted to Monica, right? Joey's thing is that he stayed home. He didn't go away for college to play football because he wanted to be close to his family and help them out with everything that was going on. He wanted to be close to his little sister or little brother, a sibling. And it speaks to obviously the goodness in his heart. But Monica's thing, right? Staying with the grandma, that's how they're bonding, which I obviously understand and is very cute. But I will say, I once knew a guy who all of his previous relationships were with people who either struggled with addiction or were like struggling in some way. And I said, oh, this is very interesting that all of your previous relationships are with people who are severely going through something in a way that's, everyone's going through something, but like going through something in a way that's very intense. And he was like, oh, I love to save people. And he was very self aware about it. I mean, he was a freak in other ways, but he was very self aware about it, which kind of shook me. So I will say, let's just put a pin on Joey and his obsession with saving people, because I worry that their connection might be sort of centered around this idea that he needs to save her from herself or her situation with her grandma, or he loves to swoop in and be the hero. And obviously, that's a masculine thing, or typical American masculinity. I'm not saying this, I'm just saying like typical American masculinity to like be the hero, the protector, the father figure. And it is just a watch out for him. Moving on to episode 2, we have Ben the Christian. Obviously, immediate red flags before we even get into the other stuff from later episodes. I just think those people, friends who are that way, very suspicious. Obviously, I don't know what's going on there, but there was a couple of TikTok posts about him. People were gossiping about the way that he did in Minneapolis. So I'm intrigued to see if that will come up at the reunion, if they make it. I mean, they'll be at the reunion, but like, I don't see these two getting married. For Sarah, the oncology nurse, I wrote, I feel like we would party together when she first got on screen, just because she has that like party girl voice. But I will also say, I think a lot of the stuff that came out later, not vibing with Miss Sarah. We go back to the Molly and Dave storyline where he reveals that he was a cheater. She reveals that she was a mistress. I literally just wrote, Lord, not this. This is going to be too much for my poor little heart. I think that Molly never having a boyfriend and sort of, placing a lot of her self-worth on chasing after male validation sort of explains why she would end up in like a side chick situation. Obviously, again, I'm not speaking for all people. I'm just speaking to the situation. But I will say it is interesting that she said that on national TV, because I personally would not reveal to people that I was a side chick or a mistress or whatever happened. And obviously, we don't know if the situation continued or the relationship continued, but I don't know. Obviously, you don't want to judge people based on this, but it's also hard not to judge people based on this, right? Because cheating is one of those things that's such a lightning rod and such a hot button issue. And my brand is literally American cheating, right? If you follow me on TikTok, I talk a lot, or Substack, I talk a lot about the way that celebrities cheat on each other. So I personally, with like American social norms, I would not lead with this. Alex the realtor, I wrote Dylan Efron. I don't know why I wrote that. I think I was just taken aback by his baby face. We're learning a lot about him, and the more that I learn about him, the more that I dislike him. So we're putting a pin in Alex for now. I do think that he actually, let's just put a pin in it. Madison, the artist, sexy phone sex operator voice. I have a soft spot for Madison, actually. I was talking to my friend about this and we were going back and forth because I love a crazy person. I very much identify with them and will party with them. And so spiritually, I fully understood her. And I think I see myself in her, right? Like, I have addiction in my family. I'm very avoidant. So her being so forthright with that and just saying that out loud, I was like, yeah, I totally get this. Obviously, what happens in later episodes is very, very, very intense. But I do think that she was sort of, I think there's a term like floodlighting. I do think that she was sort of wielding her trauma in a way to like make Alex like her more. But I will say, I think that she was doing it because Alex wasn't as into her as Mason was, right? I do think that there is something about chasing the unavoidable person, or the unavailable person, and I was surprised that she was doing it as an avoidant, because that's, I mean, it is a form of insecure attachment, right? None of these people are fully healed. They're on television. But I was interested to see her chasing after this guy who liked her a little bit less. And I don't think we saw any of Alex's other connections. For Mason, who was talking to Meg, he said that Her is one of his favorite films. And I wrote down literally Manic Pixie Dream Girl again, because they are sort of doing this thing that a lot of people do where they mistake similar taste for compatibility. I think a lot of people in early dating will say, oh, we like the same movies or we listen to the same music. And honestly, that doesn't mean a lot. I am sorry to burst that bubble, but you guys growing up in the same sort of area and being the same type of person, liking the same sort of movies isn't that surprising, right? And I will say I've gotten into conversations like this where I think my training in academic sociology is very macro. We're very focused on large scale patterns and aggregates. So aggregating personality types and aggregating people into overall patterns and movements to study larger, societal level things. So for me, a couple of years ago when people were talking about that Taylor Swift song Invisible String, and they were like, I found my invisible string. And I would say, you guys are both middle class white people from New Jersey. I'm not surprised you married each other, right? These sorts of things at the aggregate and at the very, very high macro level aren't surprising. The fact that you both like her, it's not that surprising. Again, I think for me, what's really interesting is that Mason is into this personality type, these like weird manic pixie girls, but I I mean, we see what happens with them. We get into Virginia more in the second episode. We learn a lot more about her. She's a healthcare recruiter with a PhD. I don't know why she's telling people. Oh, I guess I'm like, why is she telling people she's a doctor? She has a PhD. Okay, great. She's so pretty. I literally wrote beautiful. She's so pretty. It's very distracting. I loved that light blue dress that she wore. She was slaying. I'm kind of skeptical of her connection with Devin. I don't know. And I don't know if that's like me. I literally talk so much about incel culture and the pretty problem and like the way that TikTok is obsessed with beauty. And then I'm like, she's so pretty. Why does she like him? He's fine. I'm surprised that she's as into him as she is at this point because I think in episode two, we still haven't learned about their intense religion and the way that they are both focused on like praying together. And I think Brittany in the second episode spoke beautifully about love and partnership and the way that couples should treat each other and be together and love one another. I was very moved by that speech in the second episode, and that was literally it. That's all we saw of Brittany, Devin, and Virginia before we get right back into the Madison anxious attachment conversation with Alex. I think this is a huge one because I took a lot of notes on it. So her revealing her parents' addiction is very intense, right? Her saying that she does everything on her own. I literally said I see myself in her, right? She has learned that she can't count on people, she can't trust people, so she has to like do everything on her own. And that does develop into a sort of armor, right? You are much more resistant to the idea of letting other people in when you are so focused on like, I can do this, I can do everything, I will do everything myself, no one can help me, no one will ever let me down again. That's like a very, very sort of stereotypical attachment wound, right? When you have these issues, it is not surprising that, especially with the parent, right? So she sees that her mom is in this situation. She's much more likely to be the type of person to be like, okay, well, I can't count on this person. I need to figure it out on my own. Everyone will let me down. With Alex, I did not like the way that he handled this conversation because it was very clear. It was very clear that as soon as he said that he had anxious attachment and she said she was avoidant, he definitely pulled away. He does this thing, and this is what I said that I wanted to put a pin in earlier. He does this thing where when people say things that he doesn't like, he sort of shuts down, right? Like the energy immediately shifted. He completely pulled away from her. He was very cold. His energy was horrible. And it was obvious that like, if he wasn't punishing her, he was very much letting her know if this is subconscious or conscious. It feels very conscious to me, but I don't know if we're going to give him the benefit of the doubt on this one. He very much was like punishing her spiritually by being like, I don't like that answer, so I'm going to completely stonewall you. And the Gottman Institute is one of the foremost leaders on love research and marriage and divorce. And they say that stonewalling is one of those things that's a very, very high predictor of divorce. Obviously, this is very early in the conversation, but this is one of the highest predictors of a relationship not working out, just like completely giving someone the silent treatment and sort of, again, emotionally punishing them for not being exactly what you want. Again, manic pixie dream girl, identity is a prison, this idea that this person is not exactly who I want them to be. They're not playing the role that I've assigned to them, so I no longer like them. For Madison and Mason, I wrote that their connection is obviously, I think this is the editing because Madison has now come forward and said that they were having deep conversations, but on the show itself, they were very flirty. It's very sexually focused. Seems like it's all surface. We're not learning a lot about their sort of connection. And then we get Joey and Monica's meeting. I think that they are completely lacking in sexual chemistry. They do not seem like they like each other at all. They just stared at each other and laughed for 5 minutes straight. It was very weird. And obviously, like, who am I to judge? Blah, 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 blah. But I thought it was odd. I thought it was odd that they love each other. They're getting married. There's intense emotional connection is showing itself in them holding hands while laughing and screaming, throwing themselves on the floor. I would be a little bit pissed if my man met me and was just laughing, giggling, screaming. Moving on to the rest of the episodes, they all sort of went by in a blur, so I stopped taking individual episode notes. But like the Devin Brittany, Virginia love triangle. I think he has good chemistry with both, but I can obviously see where there were fault lines in both relationships. I think the bisexual thing was interesting. The internalized homophobia was not interesting, Miss Brittany. The fact that she has dated women and had sexual experiences with women, but like could never see herself marrying one. I was like, oh, not this. This is a very big conversation. Or it was a couple of weeks ago. There was like lesbian. I will say right now, I love other people's business. If you follow me, you know that about me. I'm on lesbian talk. I'm on black talk. I'm on trans talk. I'm on like plus size talk. I love knowing what's going on everywhere. So I keep up with all the discourse, everyone's discourse. So On bi talk, lesbian talk, queer talk, there was this whole conversation about this one influencer girl who was dating this other girl, and then she broke up with her because she wanted to have kids, and she said, "Well, I couldn't see myself having kids with a woman," and everyone was really, really mad. This is a conversation that's obviously huge in the bi community. It is not my place to speak on it, but I will say it does speak to a little bit of internalized homophobia on Brittany's side that she is getting into relationships with these women, but she's like, I still want to marry a man. I don't like co-sign on the Gen Z thing of like dating someone and not marrying them is wasting your time. I talked a lot about that with the Matt James, Rachel Kirkconnell situation. I think that it is a little bit of an input and output situation. I don't think that everything that you put your time into, you will be rewarded with like the exact outcome that you want, right? And that's just because I'm a little bit older than a lot of people on TikTok. So I've lived life. And like I said, I got laid off. I've been through breakups. I've experienced life. I know that you putting effort into something doesn't automatically mean that you deserve to like get the outcome that you want, unfortunately. But I will still say it is very weird to say on TV that you could never see yourself marrying a woman, especially if I don't know if she's going to go back to Minneapolis and just date men for the rest of her life. Because if I was a lesbian in Minneapolis, I wouldn't want to date Miss Brittany. But I will say, I was proud of her for ending it with him because the way that he handled that reveal was not great. It was, I don't know, it was very, very odd. I'm not one to throw around like homophobic or queerphobic or anything like that, but I mean, I am on a societal level if we're talking about that. But on the individual level, I'm not going to call him homophobic for not wanting to. Ooh, this is tricky. I think that it was messy of him. I think it was inappropriate of him. I don't think it is his place to judge her for sleeping with women, especially because obviously everyone has a past and like you slept with women too. But I don't think he handled it well at all. And I was very proud of her for ending it with him because she clocked that he was really weird about it. I literally wrote Virginia's too pretty for him, I fear. They seem like they like each other enough. The reveal was cute. I thought that the ibuprofen addiction was interesting. Again, I have addiction in my family. I didn't know you could get addicted to ibuprofen. I don't know if that's like a cop out, like he doesn't want to say what he was actually addicted to, but we'll see. I was very surprised by that. I think that they're very religious, and I think that's obviously the core of their connection. I'm now wondering if they're going to be physical on their honeymoon because of it. I think that it's interesting to see the way that I wish that we got like a single honeymoon episode or like whatever retreat episode. But it's interesting that they're like so prayer focused. They're like leading on this like bountiful spiritual connection, which is obviously lovely. But I really want to clock if they're how religious they are because that couple on the last season where it was the principal and the girl and he said they were very Christian and she wanted to submit to him because the man is the head of the household and she then they weren't physical at all. That was interesting to me. So I want to see if we get a repeat of that situation. Dave, Lauren, and Molly mess. Literally the bullet mess. I feel like Dave is sort of skirting around some of the things that he said to Molly by pretending not to remember. I've already seen all of the receipts on Instagram. Like he obviously told Molly that she was his number one and then told Lauren that she was his number one. The way that he speaks to them is gross. I think he's negging them. I think that he is like sowing the seeds of insecurity. I will also say because I've been in therapy for a long time and the first 5 years of therapy, it was very much unlearning bad patterns. So I learned a lot about, and this is what got me in trouble with Summer House and Sierra, where I said that a lot of the mistakes that you make are sort of your own fault because they are what's ingrained within you. So again, I feel bad, but I do feel like Molly and Lauren in this situation are obviously in different ways, but they're both a little bit insecure. And so them sort of entering into a relationship with Dave, who is evil, I'm trying not to victim blame. I'm saying it from a therapeutic perspective where in therapy, you have to unlearn your attachment issues. You have to unlearn the patterns that make you date these bad guys, right? Molly being a side chick, Lauren admitting that she's an overthinker, that she thinks herself out of relationships because she's like freaking out and she's so insecure. Like they picked this guy because of their wounds and the fact that he's manipulating them now. Like he's still the villain, he's evil, but I just feel so bad for them. Like Molly is kind of the eternal cool girl. She wants to go along with everything he said in order to be picked. It's like kind of sad. She should not be on the show only because I don't think that you learn how to be in relationship by like getting married. I feel like a lot of very young people think that if they just marry someone, then they'll learn all of the skills that they need. They'll be equipped automatically. And unfortunately, that's just not true. You don't learn to be in relationship magically, right? You learn to be in relationship by being in relationship. So I do feel bad for Molly the cool girl and her bangs. I feel bad that he didn't pick her. The final conversation with her and Lauren was very sloppy. Lauren was sort of in her head and thinking that Molly was terrorizing her. I will say this isn't very popular, but I do think that there is a way that certain people will like weaponize their insecurity and make it your problem. I think that I've talked a lot about this on TikTok, but when we talk about lack of agency, a lot of people are sort of like, I felt bad about this thing that you said, therefore it's your fault that I felt bad. And we saw this on Summer House last season with the Danielle, Paige, Gabby situation, where Gabby was like, I feel like you hurt my feelings. And Danielle said, I didn't hurt your feelings. And maybe that's a Capricorn thing where it's like, it's very nuanced and you have to just like speak to the truth versus your emotional truth. But I don't think that someone saying something that hurts your feelings makes what they said hurtful. You can be hurt by something someone said, but that doesn't mean that Molly was like saying this to Lauren to hurt her on purpose, right? I think that Lauren, by her own admission, was in her head. And I think that her sort of taking that out on Molly by distancing herself and not wanting a real relationship with her is a little bit of her issue. Again, this all comes back to Dave. He's evil. I don't know why he proposed to Lauren. It makes it seem like the preview makes it seem like it's not going to end well. He seems so shady. Like, I just the fact that he has such a high opinion of himself, the fact that he's so obsessed with himself, the fact that he's like, all women should be hot and I'm only around hot women, it makes me so sick. And it's just such a weird thing in like dating culture because you see a guy like him and I'm like, this is the guy? It must be a Minnesota thing. I just, I'm so surprised that he has such a high opinion of himself. Like and I know that's a little bit mean. I'm like calling him ugly in so many ways, but like, I just am so surprised that he is terrorizing both of these girls who seem like nice women and they want him. That is their king. Daniel and Taylor, I did not talk about them at all in the first two episodes. And I mean, I think it's creepy if he did follow and unfollow her. I will say her interest being Taco Bell and Christmas, her pretending that that's like extremely niche is a little bit myopic, right? And like one of the pictures that she talks about is the stocking. I saw the stocking. I went on Instagram. It is a stocking that they sell at Target. It is a stock. It's a red stocking with the letter T on it. Like, I don't think they have any chemistry regardless. I just also feel like how would he know that it was her behind the wall? Like, is she the only person in Minnesota named Taylor who likes Christmas and Taco Bell? I mean, I guess the interests are super specific, but like, I stand with her. I think it's creepy if it is true. I don't know. I was gonna say I don't know why she got engaged to him, but obviously she discovered this after because she like, found him very familiar. Yeah, I stand with her. I mean, I think it's really weird. I just don't know what the explanation would be. How would he know her? How would he know it was her? Is the thought that he followed her onto the show? Like, is this a Lydia and Uche situation? I need more before I can decide what happened. But I will say, for the record, it's creepy. I stand with her. It's super creepy. I also don't think she's into him. Like I said, I don't think they have any chemistry. I feel bad that his whole personality is I'm short. He's 5'8", which is 1 inch shorter than the average for men in America. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't like that his whole thing is I'm short. I'm taller than him, I will say, but I'm sweetie, you're not that short. Get off the apps. Ben and Sarah, Lord, 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 Lord. Where do we even begin with these two? Obviously, I clocked him for being a little bit conservative when he was saying those people, and I know people who are that way. I said, oh, not this. I think it is very performative of her to be like, I stand with Black Lives Matter, and then also be like, but I love this man. I think that he is pretending not to care about this stuff for TV. I do not trust him. Combined with the queer stuff from earlier and him being like, I don't know anything about Black Lives Matter. I don't have an opinion on George Floyd. I do not believe him. I think it is very sus. He is a white man living in Minnesota. I don't know if he lives in Minneapolis, but he lives in Minnesota where George Floyd was murdered. There's no way that you don't know what this is or what people are talking about. I am so sorry. I will say again, I think it's bad that she still got engaged to him. I think this is a very common thing where a lot of like liberal people will I feel bad because again, I am a man. But like I think this is an epidemic of liberal women being like, I'm so liberal, I'm so liberal, and then like their partner is not. And I feel like this is where a lot of people of color are sort of very enraged by this, where it feels performative, right? You stand with us, you love us, you're like, riding with us, and then you're like, no, but I go home to my man and he votes for Trump and blah blah blah. Girl, it's not standing with us. You know what I mean? You're not undoing the damage. You're still choosing him. And the person that you're choosing to build a life with and build a family with is actively voting against us and people like us and people like your sister, mama. You need to lock in. If you're really about this, you're really about this. But I don't think she's really about this. Madison, Alex, Mason, and Meg. Lord, this is a mess. This is a mess. So, a quick recap. Mason tries to lock down Madison, but ends up pushing her away. She's turned off by his interest. When he says, I'm going to commit to you, she's like, ooh, absolutely not, which is a very avoidant thing. I have clocked that. I think him being so into her turned her off, and she was like, I don't actually like this guy, which is surprising because maybe that's why they were so sexual with each other because she like actually didn't feel a connection with him. But then I also worry about her, and I know that she is hated on Reddit. People already decided that she, like every season of Love is Blind, they choose one woman to be the Jezebel harpy and they come for her. They say that she's the most evil person that ever lived and that she's manipulative and that she's the devil's wife. And I'm just like, okay, guys, like she's a traumatized woman who isn't the greatest, but like let's relax a little bit. I think that she's obviously pushing him away because he likes her. I think that if she did like him, she was leading with her sexuality because she like only knows how to bond with people with her trauma, right? She's telling you, this is who I am. I am made up of all of these parts and you can take me or leave me. Unfortunately, she did that with Alex, who wasn't prepared to do that. But I do wonder if she had led with that with Mason, if he would have been able to handle that, right? Because I think a lot of people are clocking that she was very different with both of them. So I'm like a little bit intrigued to see what the vibes there are. It then said it's unclear if he actually likes Meg or if he's just trying to recoup. After Madison pushes him away, he tries to get back with Meg. Meg, I stand, I mean, obviously not MAGA Meg, but I only stand with her when she says, I want to be chosen. And even though she's a little bit nuts, I do stand with her. I wouldn't want to be anyone's second choice either. So the fact that she absolutely stands in her truth and is like, I'm always going to be wondering if I was your number two, it makes complete sense to me. Like, she is right. And I feel bad that Mason left with no one, but this is what happens when you chase manic pixie dream girls who are like gonna spice up your life. She is a human being and she said, no, actually, I want somebody to pick me. Even though I really liked you, it's not enough for you to now pick me as your number two because people are saying that she sort of turned Meg against him. I don't think that. I mean, we saw that last season as well. I think that if you're really locked in, you're locked in. I don't think that's something that your nemesis or like your romantic rival can say to you will actually make you like completely turn away from somebody that you're into. At the end, Alex and Madison are having a conversation. He defends Mason when they talk and they break up because he feels bad for both of them. He says there are two separate situations and he can have nuance for both of them. And Madison says, not on my watch. She starts like crying. And again, he is withholding due to his insecurity. It's a strange inversion of their dynamic. But like I said, he punishes her whenever she says something that he doesn't like, he like immediately shuts down and the energy is so cold and so odd. I feel bad for her. I would also sort of not know if this was the right choice to make. Him also being the one to end it and be we are not in the same place. We don't want the same things or emotional communication isn't where it needs to be was not surprising to me, but just like I feel bad for her. I know that she's the villain and everyone hates her, but I don't know. I think she is traumatized and I think that it's hard to know how to fix yourself in these situations when you like are presented with something that you want. And so, yeah, I feel bad for her, but like I think it's for the best. Like I think he is kind of a creep. I think that the fact that he punishes her and like shuts down and uses his emotional sort of walls as a weapon. I don't love that. I really really don't love that. So I think it's for the best. And that's everybody. That's all the couples. We have Joey and Monica, Dave and Lauren, Daniel and Taylor, Ben and Sarah. None of the four with the M names. And then Devin and Virginia. Okay. So we'll see. I mean, new episodes next week. We're going to lock in. We're going to see what's giving. Ultimately, like I said, we need more diversity. I mean, at this point, it's too late, right? But the season isn't really giving. I think that there are some interesting dynamics. I think that the fact that they kept six pod episodes and the entire Madison, Mason, Molly, Meg, Lord, I already messed up the names. Madison, Mason, Alex, Meg situation. It's like padding. I feel like they did it last season as well, but it's also like, oh, I don't know if we needed to see all these people if none of them are making it to the altar. Let's pivot now to White Lotus. We start off our journey into the White Lotus season 3. Obviously, this season is all about Eastern wellness, this intense focus on spirituality. They make it a point to say it throughout the episode. We hear the word wellness like 40 times, which is interesting. I'm interested to see the subversion. I know that Mike White is known for subverting our expectations. I want to see what the difference will be in this sense because I know that there's no way that this gay white guy is going to write a show about white people going to find themselves in the mystical East. But we'll see. I think that it's really interesting to think about the idea of becoming new and spiritually cleansed again. I think it is well trodden. Obviously, we have Eat, Pray, Love, and that entire genre of memoir of a white person going to the East to find themselves. But the whole goop thing is being reborn, cleansing yourself of evil toxin, becoming the best version of yourself, dabbling in that woo woo spiritual thing that a lot of people are very, very privy and prone to. I always say that, like, I have to be very careful about my own Instagram habits because I am like 7 follows away from falling down a woo woo pipeline. I love astrology. I love like a crystal. So I have to be very careful about, ending up on certain places because, Lord, the RFK of it all. Curious to see how I'm curious to see how reincarnation plays into this as well. Like the idea of literally becoming a new version of yourself after death, right? Starting off with the theme song, it starts off really cheery, but it immediately becomes like forlorn and ominous, kind of sad and eerie. It clips along, but I think the lack of backing music makes it seem a little empty. And around the 150 mark, it sort of gets more intense where the beat drops, but it's still carrying this intense seeking energy. I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I do think that there is something to be said about the fact that they changed it and it does seem very, not spooky, but just like sad and very ominous and dreadful. Also, with the actress and her friends, Jacqueline, Kate, and Lori, they're sort of dabbling into that like Western medicine, Eastern medicine thing, talking about Botox. I'm curious to see where their journeys will go, if they're going to go on the, eat, pray, love, subversion journey. The Ratliffs all have some sort of intense spiritual ailment and intense spiritual rot. We are seeing them rotting from the inside out. And obviously, this is a sort of conversation about privilege and money and all of the stuff that the White Lotus is excellent at, right? Talking about class, talking about the ways that money corrupts you, talking about the way that like power corrupts you, and how wherever you go, there you are, that these people can't like escape themselves. But it is so interesting to see. I'm just so curious to see what's going to happen. I think Walton Goggins and Amy Lou Wood are sort of playing into this expectation while also resenting the roles that they're cast in, right? This idea of you are who you are no matter where you are. And again, I love what she says to him, you're a victim to your own decisions. And I think Belinda's positionality is really interesting because, again, as the sole black woman on the cast, is she here to serve again? I think the first season she served a really, really specific role where she was sort of placed on a totem pole below the other characters who were there, obviously, for vacation. She's here to learn, but I think from the episode previews, we do see her going on a little bit of a journey. And I think, the episode title, right? Or this episode title of this video, identity is a prison, the self is a prison. I'm sort kind of obsessed with that topic and the idea that all of these people are seeking something and they're really actually just trapped within the people that they are. Going one by one, Timothy Ratliff, played by Jason Isaacs, Mr. Malfoy himself. Obviously, an examination into American privilege, something we get flavors of every season. I think that this Southern flavor is very specific and even more steeped in meaning due to the election, which, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know because this was obviously filmed before the election, but it's sort of prescient, right? Like, we saw the way that this country has been becoming more conservative, the way that we're all sort of in this upswing towards moral conservatism. So it's interesting to see that now we're getting this very, very Southern flavor of like alpha male winner. The Wall Street Journal thing is interesting. And the behind the scenes of the episode, they said a different last name for the friend. I watched it again, so I've seen the episode twice. And when he's on the phone with the Wall Street guy in the episode, they say Kenneth Wynn. But then in the behind the scene, they say Kenneth Bradshaw. So I think they changed it. I think it's a goof, but just calling it out. He's playing subtly douchey very well. I love the conversation about asking the kids for their goals, right? He is so dead set in this mindset of you have to be accomplishing, you have to be like bettering yourself. And I think that's obviously in conversation with coming to the East to find yourself or to make yourself anew. He is like, I just want to go to the gym. I just want to keep myself in shape. I just have to be optimizing, right? The Gio Tolentino essay, always be optimizing. I think that the tension with the louche Walton Goggins is interesting because we're contrasting two different flavors of American masculinity, right? I think Timothy is very traditional and upright, right? He's a father. He went to Duke. He has this financial firm. He is very successful. He makes a lot of money. He has the perfect family. And the Walton Goggins character is very sloppy. He's wearing these shirts. He's smoking. He has a very, very young girlfriend. The shirts are killing me just because they're so out of control and they're like buttoned at the belly button. But I think that they're foiling each other in the belief that the rules don't apply to them, right? They're both very specific versions of American white men where it's like, I am king, I am God, and I'm doing whatever I want. They're just doing it in two different directions, but opposing each other. The last thing that I thought was interesting was the way that he sort of cuts off Pam, the Australian lady, to be like, that's enough. Thank you so much, right? He dismisses her to send her on her way, this intense way that he needs to get what he wants at all times. She's literally telling them about the wellness offerings at the resort, and my queen, Parker Posey, is like, I don't want to take a test. And he immediately is like, Lord, we're not doing this. So I did laugh. In the episode previews, we're seeing for the security guard, I think that there is a masculinity element again at play with the security guard wanting to be a little bit more, I don't want to say be a man, but we're getting hints of that with Lisa Mook telling him that he needs to like toughen up. And pardon if that's in the episode preview and not necessarily in this episode, but I put it up here because I thought it was again speaking directly to the masculinity conversation. Victoria Parker Posey, my queen, my mother, my angel. She's from the House of Yes, Josie and the Pussycats, Party Girl, Scream 3, Staircase, where in the Staircase she actually was also, she worked with Patrick Schwarzenegger. She played the DA who was terrorizing Colin Firth, where he was on the stand and she was the one who was asking him about all the gay porn on his computer. And she was doing this crazy, crazy accent. I think they were in North Carolina too. So maybe Mike White saw the Staircase and was just like, let's just bring them all over. Um, I loved her immediately telling the staff about her family's educational attainment. It was hilarious and very, very true to life if you've ever met someone like that. I'm again curious to see what the subversion will be for her because I think there has to be more than her just being a pill mom, right? Like, I expect that there will be more to her storyline. But we're hearing a lot about the lorazepam. We're hearing a lot about her sort of inability to function in polite society. But I thought it was curious. We're a normal family, right? I think that's just going to be the understatement of the century. If those aren't arc words and foreshadowing, I don't know what is. I loved Pam, the Australian lady, again being uncomfortable with our lack of boundaries, the fact that they were the genitals thing, and then the fact that the brother was like tickling the sister, and the mom was just like hee 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 hee. Very, very weird. Very, very weird. Saxon is the devil. He's a very specific Southern frat boy monster. I think he's foiling his father in the ineffectualness, right? He is a Nepo baby. He has a lack of originality. He works for his father. He's a capitalist pig. He's a sexist, right? All of the stuff that's just very, very sort of stereotypical and tropey. He is those things. He's coddled by his mother. Nothing that he has, he's worked for. Everything has been given to him, right? He went to Duke, but sure. I'm intrigued to see where this goes. I'm very afraid. I'm hearing a lot of rumors. People on TikTok are freaking out about the storyline. I am not going to believe anything until I see it on screen, but just like, I think he's doing it really well. I think on the Staircase, he played sort of a loser very well, and now it's interesting to see him contrast that with this not winner, right? Because Saxon isn't a winner. He's living in the shadow of his father, but he believes himself to be a winner. I wonder if there's an internal tension there where he knows that he's actually not a winner and he's trying to overcome that by playing the role of Southern frat boy, good time boy. Piper is a little thinly drawn as of yet. I'm assuming that she's going to be like a Buddhist convert and will probably not want to go back, sort of similar to Fred Heckinger's character, Heckinger's character from season one. But again, we need to learn more about her. She had like 4 lines this episode. Lachlan seems sort of torn between the siblings. Obviously, something else is going on. I absolutely hate the way he was staring at his brother. Terrifying. But yeah, the way that they're sort of, he's torn between the spirituality of the sister or wanting to be a good brother and just like wanting to be a man or quotes around man. I think that's going to be interesting. Moving on to Amy Lou Wood, Miss Chelsea. Moving on to Chelsea, played by Miss Amy Lou Wood from Sex Education. I absolutely love her. She is the standout of the season for me. I love her obsession with getting fucked up. She's real. She's real as fuck. I think that there is like again that woo element there. She's a former yoga teacher. The way that she says the cosmos brought us together to get to the root of your issues. I think that there is obviously a very tropey thing of like the young girlfriend trying to fix her older boyfriend. Obviously that's not going to work. I think she's very naturalistic in this role. I don't see a lot of the seams there. I think she's awesome. I'm really loving her. Walton Goggins' character, I spoke about him a little bit at the top where I contrasted him with the Ratliff father, Timothy. Again, I think that there is a sort of examination of American masculinity there, except that now this is the like loser back home version, right? He's the one with the very young girlfriend. He's the one that sort of flopped out of polite society. He travels around. Where does he get his money? Who knows? But again, he is there to sort of contrast the Ratliff father, and obviously he has his own sketch mission. I do not think that he's going to be the killer or the one that dies because that just feels too obvious. I don't think he's an assassin. A lot of people are speculating that he's the Hollinger, the hotel owner's son. So we'll see if that comes true. But I know he goes on an adventure of some sort. Moving on to longtime friends, not old. The way that they all stare at Valentin made me cry. Kate is played by Leslie Bibb from Popular and GCBs. She is absolutely frothing with envy and self-importance. She's married to a rich guy in Austin, and I love how she's like, well, people think they know me and they want things from me all the time. I am obsessed with this storyline. I love the way that all three actresses are sort of playing off each other. I think that there is a lack of naturalness there that I'm obsessed with, right? Because they are proclaiming themselves to be old friends, and they're like, people thought that we were the same person when we were little, but they very clearly do not like each other. And I do think that the layer of artificiality is sort of really delicious and really fun to watch. Just the way that they have to compliment each other every 30 seconds, and especially Kate, Leslie Bibb's character, just being like, I have to check my privilege at all times, just being like, we're so lucky. This is a victory tour. She is playing the smug rich wife so well. I'm obsessed. And I do think that it's interesting because there is a sort of differentiation, right? She's not just like smug rich wife. She is doing something very specific and very, very good, where we're contrasting her with Jacqueline, who's smug in a different way. Michelle Monaghan, I haven't seen her in a while, looks great. She's absolutely gorgeous. She's doing this weird, I don't know if it's like the Meisner technique, she's doing this weird mirroring thing where every single time someone gives her a compliment, she immediately repeats it back to the other person. And I don't know if it's a false humility or if it's something they teach you when you're famous to like make the other person feel at ease, but it made me laugh. I watched the episode twice and it made me laugh every single time. She would just immediately reflect it back to someone. And I don't know if it's graciousness because she's not saying thank you or not really sort of internalizing it. She's just like, well, you're so pretty. No, you look great. Well, I'm sure you were a great actress. And God, Miss Carrie Coon, my queen, obviously from The Leftovers, Gone Girl, The Gilded Age, she is the one. I think that I have to look up the four humors again, but there's one that's like melancholic or sanguine or something that's like clearly over the bullshit. She's watching them trade compliments back and forth, and she's like, girl, what are we doing here? Her being the first one to drink, grabbing the bottle from the two of them, I'm obsessed with her. The way that they dragged her at the end, the way that like rich white people will sort of drag each other is very funny because the way that they turned on her when they keep forgetting that she's there, which is interesting. They are like forming a unit, and then Carrie Coon is sort of sitting there. She's the standing woman emoji. She's just watching all the bullshit, being like, what are we doing here, guys? But the way that they dragged her at the end, where like everything you do is so hard, the corporate world is so tough, and your daughter's turning into a really cool girl. I feel like they're calling the daughter ugly. They are mean. They're so mean, and I'm really curious to see why she broke down at the end of the episode. I thought that was really, really fun. I think it's going to be a wild season. I'm so intrigued by her. Belinda, I think from the episode preview, we know that she's going to go on like some romantic journey with, I don't know if it's with Porn Chai, but I'm curious to see who it's with. I hope that she gets some. She deserves it. Obviously, they're setting something up with the son, Zion, and he's like, oh, I'm taking these finals and I'm stressed, dot, dot, dot. And I said, okay, something's going on here. So there's another mystery to unravel there. I'm not a murder mystery person, so I'm not going to be like counting down the episodes and being like, this is the body, this isn't the body. I'm just going to wait to see it because I think every theory is going to be wrong. Someone's saying that the monkeys do it, so I'm getting that on the record in case it's true, so I can say, I believed it was the monkeys. I don't know if I believe it's the monkeys, but we'll see. What else is going on in the episode? I feel like I watched it twice and I took so many notes, and now I'm like, that's it, those are all the characters. I spoke a little bit about Mook and the security guard. I do think that they're also going to play into the masculinity thing. I'm curious to see where that storyline is going to go, only because I think last season we did the sort of girl who wanted more from her station, but I do love that she is again just a driven girl. She says, you don't have any ambition, you know. I like that she's the one pushing him, and that's obviously setting up the sort of murder storyline, because I don't know if he's going to be the one to do it, or if he's going to be like driven to do it because he's trying to impress her, or I genuinely don't know. But again, I think all of my analysis of the episode was sort of at the front of this, where I am so curious to see the way that they talk about the identity, the way that they talk about the identity being a prison, the way that they talk about the self, chasing after yourself, wanting to be a new version of yourself. All of this stuff is so rich and ripe for story potential. I do think this episode was very much just setting everything up, and I'm glad that this was split with the Love is Blind, because I don't think I would have had enough for its own episode. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. I feel like this went longer than I expected. I'm proud of myself, especially for first episode. So let me know what you guys want to hear. I don't really have a book rec yet for you guys. I am trying to think of something, a book about the identity and the self. I will do two books next week to sort of speak to both elements of both shows. I think that there is something interesting there. I just can't like land at the plane right now. But the manic pixie dream thing of just like pretending to be someone else so that someone will like you, thinking that someone else will save you is interesting with contrasted with the White Lotus thing of I'm going to this place to save myself and I want to be fixed and I want to be different. And I'm kind of happy that the show's premiered at the same time.